what was ISRO. It starts in the year 1963, November 21st, if I remember correct. And Dr. Sarabhai, the eminent scientist of ISRO, eminent scientist of the country, was the first, shall I call, at that time it is not called chairman, but he was leading the show. He's such a great person, and I must spend some small time in explaining his real contribution in the today's ISRO. He could see, for example, he started in a very small scale. He started launching what is called Judy Dot. That is a very small engine rocket. It's about 3 inches diameter, and the total weight will be something like about 10 kg. And it has copper shafts, fine needles of copper that will be injected in the atmosphere. And depending upon the weather conditions and all, the same thing will be photographed for the physical research laboratory. Now, incidentally, this rocket was made in France. And he has chosen a small strip of land which is close to equator and named as Tumba. So originally it was known as Tumba Equatorial Rocket Launching Station. This is known as otherwise TERLS, which eventually got dedicated to the UN. And any member country can use to launch their rockets here. So Sarabhai started TERLS, and he was such a great character. He got a Judy Dot from France. He also got Centaur rocket from France. The Centaur rockets were made by an organization called Sud Aviation of French. Then he got the technology for making the solid propellants from the same Sud Aviation. And then he got the Nike Apache rocket from USA. And he got a supercomputer. I mean, at that time it was a supercomputer from Russia, Minsk computer. And imagine, you see, both Russia and America both were actually apart. Each one was not liking the sight of the other guy, but he could work with both together. And I happened to be lucky to be closely associated with him. And when I joined ISRO, we were something in the order of about 20-25 people. Now today we are about 28 to 30,000 people in ISRO, approximately. And the center in Trivandrum was the mother of all the other centers. Like you have the Sriharikota, which is called Satish Dhawan Space Center. And you have UR Satellite Center in Bangalore. Then you have the Vikram Sarabhai Space Center here in Trivandrum. Then you have Mahendragiri, there is a test facility. Then you have NRSA at Hyderabad. And you know, this center has given birth to so many other small centers, and slowly it was growing. So we started originally only for launching scientific payloads using sounding rockets, small rockets like Centaur and Nike Apache. And Dr. Sarabhai was originally in PRL, and he was, of course, the chairman of Atomic Energy Commission after Baba. As you know, Dr. Baba died in an air crash during 1966. And Dr. Sarabhai became the chairman of both the Atomic Energy as well as the Tumba. And he was having a very big dream. The dream includes making the so-called rocket program in a very major scale. Actually, you must understand, that in the beginning, when the station was when it got started, we had nothing other than borrowed rockets of Judy Dart and Sendar and Nike Apache. And we had one facility called in Aravangadu. In Aravangadu, we have, in Tamil Nadu, you have a facility to extrude the so-called double base SUK propellant. Uh, that propellant is again a solid propellant, which was used by the Britishers at that time. So with that, he had a big dream. Now he was going through that dream, and he was planning for the so-called SLV-3. The SLV-3 was what is known as satellite launch vehicle. Now you may ask whether the SLV-3 means whether it was there was 1 and 2. Yes, 1 and 2 were in paper, and the 3 was the one which was taking the shape. But before that, we started with what is called Rohini Rocket 75, which we call it as RH-75. Then we went through Rohini 100. This number 100 means 100 millimeter diameter. And then we went to 125. Then we went to RH-300. Then we went to RH-560. Then we went to 1 meter diameter, which becomes the first stage of the SLV-3. So the growth was in these small steps. And all through we were using the PVC propellant, which was that is polyvinyl chloride propellant, which is available in our propellant plant, which we built it at that time with the French know-how. Parallelly, we were trying to develop our own propellant. See, the dream of Sarabhai consists of start from slightly higher up and then parallelly try to indigenize it and then try to find some shortcuts to see whether you can make it cost effective. This was his norms. So when we went to SLV-3, unfortunately what happened, 1971, January 30th, Sarabhai passed away. He was a healthy person. No known disease like blood pressure, etc. was there. But he died all of a sudden in sleep. And that was a big setback to ISRO because there was one chairman who passed away on an air crash, another chairman who passed away while he was on sleep. And then the whole thing comes to the next chairman, to Professor Satish Dhawan. Satish Dhawan was the director of the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. And he was the chairman for ISRO for more than 12, 13 years. He took over in the year 1972, and he was there till 1982, 83. So actually speaking, he was the architect of what is today's ISRO. He conceived the SLV-3 in its full, though Sarabhai started it, he conceived it and gave a shape to it. Then we had one program called the ASLV. Then he had planned the PSLV and the GSLV. All these names may not be easily understood by you, but SLV-3, SLV means satellite launch vehicle. Now, ASLV means augmented satellite launch vehicle. PSLV means polar satellite launch vehicle, and GSLV means geosynchronous satellite launch vehicle. Now, the whole trick lies in the fact, how do you configure a vehicle? So generally, I'm not going to go in length, but I'm going to be brief in telling. Generally, you decide what is going to be your payload. All these vehicles are satellite launch vehicles. You can have a satellite in the near Earth orbit, LEO, low Earth orbit. You can have it in the medium, and you can have it in the geosynchronous orbit. The orbit and the mass you decide. So, and you configure the vehicle to reach that goal. I'm not going to touch upon SLV3 and ASLV. We had a lot of difficulties in ASLV. Many failures were there. And the SLV, we launched only a minimum number and then we stopped it. But then we took up the PSLV. The many failures in ASLV were the sole reason for our successful flights of PSLV. And then GSLV. Now, I will come to these two things a little later, but let me continue with the trend, what is going on. Now, PSLV, I think we had now more than 50 flights probably, and not even a single failure. In the sense that, excepting the first one, where we had a computer problem with respect to the third stage. All other PSLVs are successful. GSLV, we had a couple of failures, and where we had this Russian technology and Indian technology, that problem was there. Now, so in other words, when Professor Dhawan conceived these 3-4 projects, I asked him. Incidentally, I must tell you, I was very happily trying to be associated with the liquid propulsion because Dr. Kalam was working on the solid propulsion at that time. I was with Dr. Kalam in the beginning. Then I thought I will go and then look for the liquid propulsion where the future lies there. If you really want to conquer space, you can't do it without the liquids. But we never had liquids with us, in the sense, not even the propellant. Forget about the materials which are required. In solid, at least we have a base. You have the Aravangadu SUK propellant, and you had the PVC propellant supplied by the France. But with respect to the liquid, as some senior scientists put it, it is, where is liquid? Liquid is only in Kaveri. So that is a kind of. So I was trying my best to see how we can achieve this, how we can start, where we can start. So we located xylidine and red fuming nitric acid from the defense. Actually, the defense fellows got these liquid propellants, which they were trying to use it for a SAM missile, SAM, and they were not using it. So I found out that. Then I said, all right, why not we make use of it? So we either borrowed these red fuming nitric acid and then tried to develop some small liquid engines. And we were successful in developing 600 kg. 600 kg means the thrust of the engine is 600 kg. Again, a very small rocket. And then we flew two flights successfully. But then there were many people, they were all working on the solids. For them, a liquid is a competitor and liquid need not come in the picture. And liquid has no use, etc. So it was not a very cordial atmosphere. It was between solid and liquid fight. So I had a lot of problems in carrying on with the liquid, practically helpless. There was no budget, there was no project, there was no manpower. But still I wanted to do it. So we had some 2-3 people. And as Professor Dhawan put it later in one of the Central Council meeting, he was telling that this guy Nambi is chewing my ears and it is becoming so painful. So I asked him to go to France for some time and then spend some time there. That is the way he was. Actually, he was putting it diplomatically because he knew that the future is in liquid. But he also knew that the majority of the management cadre didn't like the liquid. So he put it in such a manner so that he also felt that liquid is not there, but this guy, let him go. After all, he is making such a noise. And we had a contract with the French. And the contract was very, very interesting. I'll try to put it in a nutshell. We said, we fixed a price for the technology. Technology only for the engine. Engine means it is a power plant, we call it. The power plant means it is a combustion chamber and the turbine and pump. But if you conceive a rocket, it has so many other systems. You have the tank gauges, you have the fill and drain system, you have the pogo and slash, you have so many other things are there. But the power plant alone is a contract. And the price is fixed, but Laban said we are not going to pay a single pie. How do you expect a foreign country to give you technology for no payment? So we started. Actually, it was very interesting. I started telling them that we will bring you 100 man years. Now, you are paying to your French scientist something like 12,000 francs a month, 12 to 15,000 francs a month. Now you pay us only 2,000 francs a month, 2,500 francs. So the remaining is your profit. Now calculate it for 100 man years. That will be equal to the technology price you are asking for. But at that time, they were somehow interested and impressed, and they agreed, and that is how the contract started. So some of the French people were doubtful about the ability of the Indians to match the French. Eventually, it so happened we were outsmarting them. It is not only that we matched them. I'll give you only one example. A worker, his name is Samuel Raj. He is one of the welders. I took him along with me to learn the welding of aluminum alloys, which are difficult actually. He was good at it, but whatever he was welding was not flown by the French. So we asked them, why you are not flying these pieces? They said, we can't fly it unless he passed the test of the French Welders Association. And he also added, it is very difficult to get a pass in the French Welders Association. And the fee is 25,000 francs. And most interestingly, Dhawan has said he can't give me a single pie. And French, we made them to agree to work on that formula which I told you. So where do I find this 25,000? So I told the commercial director in France that I give you guarantee that my fellow will pass in one attempt. And incidentally, the French fellows, they go through this for 7 or 8 attempts to pass. So they told me, when our own fellows are going 7 or 8 attempts, you mean to say that we believe you? Your fellows will pass in one attempt? Let us look at it. So finally, he paid the 25,000, and believe it, my fellow passed it in single attempt.
Yeah.
Then what happened? He was allowed to weld, and that weld pieces were flying. They found a big profit in that. So even they tried to brainwash him by saying that we will give you 25,000 francs per month as salary, as against the 2,500 which the ISRO is paying. So stay with us. So this fellow came to me and told me that this is what they are telling. I said, don't worry, if you do anything like that, then they will impound your passport. You can't come back to India and all. Anyway, that story is stopped there. So I'm only trying to tell you this story, how good we were in terms of efficiency and intelligence, and with our own fingers we work. So we went through that mill, and then we got the engine. We got everything with respect to the engine. We came back to India, and there was no takers. People made loose comments saying that Nambi and team went to France. They had a nice time, good wine and whatnot, cheese. Where is this technology? It will not come. So I said, all right. So I made a model, exact model, one-to-one model. Then I kept it there in the foyer where everybody passes through. So I wrote there, my name is Vikas Engine. Actually, this Vikas is named after Vikram A. Sarabhai. Rick A. Sarabhai. So this was very long back, 1974. But today they found more important the rover which goes through the Mars, Chandrayaan 2. They named that as Vikram. But that name was given by me 50 years back. And so in that Vikram, Vikas engine, we were trying to write that my name is Vikas. I have a 60-ton thrust. I burn for 180 seconds. Like that, the specification. At the end, I said, it is to be noted that I am an orphan. I put there at the end. And Dr. Dhawan, when he passed through, I made sure that he is seeing that name board. And he saw that, and then he said, why do you call yourself as an orphan? I said, that is true. Nobody wants it. So that's why I call it as an orphan. Then he took me aside for making a working engine. How much money you need? I said, roughly 70 lakhs. He said, okay, I'll give you 1 crore. You make one such engine. See, difficulty is you can't go and buy material from abroad for one engine. It is difficult. And the condition put to me was that I should make the same engine using the same material. So anyway, managed, smuggled out some of the materials, brought it as gift from somebody, all kinds of things, and then finally we made the material. And this time, I told Dhawan that then people started telling, oh, this model, but let us see how it works. We can't believe till it works. Then finally, we managed to make the company to agree to test it in their facility, because we don't have a facility here. We didn't even foresee a facility because we never had a plan to introduce the Viking engine or Vegas engine in the PSLV program. And in the meanwhile, everybody was trying their best to configure a PSLV without the liquid. And it was not meeting the requirement at all. Then finally, thanks to Dr. Pramprakash, another great scientist, metallurgist, he was telling to Professor Dhawan, Satish, you have no choice other than using the liquid. You know, it is so great, so level, the competition and the fight was going on such a level. Now they have no choice. That is how the Vikas engine came into the PSLV. And that is how the Vikas engine didn't know all this past history, but it is successfully fighting for the past 50 numbers without a single failure. And that is the most important story of the so-called Vikas engine. But I can tell you frankly, I think now I can tell, not yesterday. Supposing if you take the hurdles and problems, so many issues involved, etc., in developing the Vikas engine, 75 to 80% problems are political, non-technical. The 25% alone was the real technical problem. And we have passed through what we achieved in 1978. For that engine to fly successfully, I have to work for 19 years. 19 years, 19, when we first flew it in 93, 94. You see, this is the whole interesting part of the Vikas engine. But afterwards, successfully having flown this, after struggling this much, I was given a great award, more than the present Padma Bhushan, that I am a spy. I have passed on the technology to the other countries. Imagine, I worked for 19 years with 53 manpower, approximately amounting to 125 man years, later supported by close to 2,000 people. Means that I have transferred this technology to two illiterate women who cannot speak one word in English, and they have smuggled it out. This is the charge sheet. So that is as far as the Vikas engine is concerned. As far as the cryogenic is concerned, the so-called spy case, which I didn't want to go in deep, but I will touch upon. The spy case had two charge sheeters. One is the Vikas engine technology we have sold. I have told you. Another one is cryogenic engine, we have told. Now, I will come to the cryogenic engine now. Originally, we were planning, I was actually working towards making India as a space power. What do I mean by space power? Space power means that your ability to launch heavy weight satellites in the geosynchronous orbit. The geosynchronous orbit is 36,000 kilometers. Now, heavy weight, we are talking in the order of about 4 tons. Now, this was our dream. Now, how this dream came into existence was at that time, the potential commercial market for satellites were this. That is, they were talking about geosynchronous orbit, and 2 to 4 ton is the weight of the satellite. And imagine yourself, in the year 1994, the existing business at that time, commercial business, was worth $300 billion. So many zeros, I don't know how to count. So I thought, with a reliable vehicle, as reliable as other countries, and the cost approximately is 1/3 the cost, I should be able to get minimum 50%. That means $100 billion. So you are going to become a competitor in the commercial market. At that time, only the French and the US, these are the two countries who were fully exploiting this launch business. Though Russians and China, they had the capability, they were not in the public domain. Now, for you to achieve that space power status, you need to have the cryogenic. Now, the cryogenic, when we signed the agreement for Vikas engine, I was trying to move the idea of the cryogenic also. It is not either, I kept quiet. So Mr. T.N. Seshan, who was the, who later became the election commissioner, was director administration in Department of Space. So he was very, very interested in the affair, in the whole proposal. So he told Professor Dhawan that why not we do the cryogenic also. At that time, the French fellows were asking only 1 crore. It's difficult for you to believe, only 1 crore for the technology of the cryogenic engine. But Professor Dhawan said, he's a great man. I have 101 times specific regards for him. He was finding it difficult to push the Vikas engine itself. So he found it difficult. He said, no, we will not. So later, in the year 94, when we were about to launch, I foresaw it in 90. I told this time to Professor Rao, who was the chairman, that it is time that we should do something about the cryogenic also. He agreed. Now we went ahead in floating a tender, a global tender, and America and France, they both offered something in the order of about 1,000 crores. And the Russians, they were offering something in the order of about 235 crores. So naturally, we finalized with the Russians. The contract was signed in the year 1991. And we had estimated it will take about 8 years, meaning 1999, we should be able to launch the so-called GSLV with the cryogenic stage, reaching our near goal, something to the tune of about 2.5 tons. So mind you, in the year 94, we never had the technology of the cryogenic engine. We have only signed the contract. Now the allegation is, I have sold the technology of the cryogenic engine to a foreign power, and that too for making missile. Even today, there is not even a single missile in the world using the cryogenic technology. Why? Because it takes time. Preparation time is more. So cryogenic technology is not suitable for that. So these are the two allegations for which I was arrested, tortured, and it went through the mill. Today, we are now facing the situation of the police filed a charge sheet on that. against those people who fabricated the entire case. So, coming to the then first part of the talk, we had a limited sense, no liquid propulsion, and we gave birth to the Vikas engine, 600 kg, 3 ton, and then Vikas. And then we also foresaw the need for the cryo, and then eventually the cryogenic technology was developed and then launched in the year 2014, recently. And solid propellant, we had fantastic progress thanks to guys like Rajaram Nahappa, who was heading the team. So we have 2.8 meter diameter solid propellant, weighing something like about 140 tons of propellant. This 140 tons of propellant, compare yourself with a 5 kg propellant to 130 tons. And we will be second in the world next to USA on the solid propellant technology. Now on the liquid, now we are delayed because of various problems. And the architect of the whole thing was Professor Dhawan. And that was a blueprint made by him. And he successfully launched the PSLV. Of course, Professor Rao was the person who gave the blueprint, the life to that. And then he successfully launched the PSLV. And then he has handed over this to Dr. Rangan. Now, that was, up to that point, is what we call it as the then period, Dr. Sarabhai to Professor Rao. Now I will start, though it is not really now, I will start the now. What happened is, we suddenly made the cryogenic engine. And 2014, we launched it. And with the Russian technology, we had some difficulty and we could not perfect it. And we had problems in the launch and we had problems in the realization. And in fact, the Russian technology we chose because that was the best efficient engine in the world, better than even the Americans. We call it as specific impulse. That is an energy index. Now that was the highest for the Russian engine, in the order of 462 seconds, compared to the Americans 432 or so. Now I don't think that the Indian-made system has that kind of a specific impulse. It is working on a gas accelerator cycle, etc. Now, the present situation, I find, is little. I'm not keeping in touch with the totality of the present situation, but I have some knowledge through friends and people. Compared to what we made as the Viking engine, which was burning for 180 seconds, now they have made it to burn for some more time, 210 seconds or so. And they have clubbed 2 such Viking engines. Problem? They had clubbed 2 such Viking engines, and they call it as 110 ton, which they are using it in some of the missions. Other than that, we call it as earth storable. From 94 to till today, to 27 years, I don't find much progress in the area of launch vehicles. I want to touch upon this when we come to tomorrow. But with respect to the satellites, I personally think that we do not have the state-of-the-art technology as far as the satellite goes. So in a way, we are continuing what we earned till 94, and then we go in that mode. That's what it appears to me. Now, coming back to what we should do or what we lack, I will make it clear. I will tell what others are doing. For example, if you take the Americans, you must be reading in the papers. Elon Musk is trying to make the technology cheaper, cost-effective, and reusable vehicles, for example.
Yes.
Reusability comes in the picture only to reduce the cost. See, we were very cost-effective. I told you our cost is 1/3. It's purely because we applied such techniques so that we were taking shortcuts. We were trying to establish extrapolation, etc. For example, one typical example I will give you, we avoided putting up a high altitude facility, which would cost us something close to 100 crores and 3 years of time. And we avoided. We said, okay, we will. So like that, we took shortcuts. That is how our cost becomes 1/3. Now, Elon Musk is, if you really look at the American space related areas, now they are trying to do a cost-effective methods. They are trying to go for reusability. They are trying to go for example, even now they are trying to do smaller satellites, something in the order of about 25 kg satellites. 1,500 satellites they launch in the low Earth orbit. Why? Because you don't need that much power. So it is something like, for example, somebody else, I think it is Boeing, no, Amazon. Yeah, I think one of them. They are taking the rockets in an aircraft at an altitude of 80 kilometers or 70 kilometers, and from there they launch.
Sure.
So innovative technologies are coming in the picture. Miniaturization is yet another area where they are extremely good. The smaller satellites are doing very well because of the miniaturization. Similarly, for example, we were doing the so-called LAM engine, the liquid apogee module, using propellant. We are carrying a dead mass. Supposing we say the satellite mass is 2 tons. Out of that, close to 500 kg is the propellant mass, which is used for orbitization, which is not useful. The useful payload is less. Now, how do we gain that? That is by replacing the LAM, by putting the apogee motors like this one, the electronic ion propulsion. We didn't do anything on that. So if we really look at it, I'm combining that if you really mean business, I must also tell you here, the present government has understood this. So recently, about a year back, they have started opening up the ISRO facilities for external players. External players, I mean that anybody who retires from ISRO or who have interest in investing money in an industry, now that kind of a thing is what is happening exactly in USA. Even in China, there are private companies who are working. Such a tight-lipped country. And so if you really look at it, it is time that, and the government is doing the right thing, but they have to do it little more. They have said that ISRO facilities are available, so you can make use of it. But you should specify the areas where you need innovation, extremely bright ideas, and some kind of young blood to come in the picture, so that you get more and more cost saving. So I am of the opinion that you need a thorough review on the present technology level in ISRO. In particularly, you see, you have no business if you don't update your technology on launch vehicles on one hand and satellite on the other hand. You can't live with the age-old technology and then say, okay, I have launched 50 numbers without any failure or something like that. It makes no sense. So now it is time that you review the whole thing and then come back and then say, okay, these are the areas where I am going to ask for. There are bright boys. You won't believe it. These fellows will come with ideas. Now, with those ideas, you have to reorganize the whole thing. See, it is like this. If you take NASA is only for USA. It is a what do you call a focal point. NASA doesn't do anything. NASA is an agency which is monitoring the whole thing. Same thing is true in Europe. You have ESA, European Space Agency. Now, I am of the opinion, I used to talk about way back, not today, something called ESA, Asian Space Agency. Now, Dr. Swami will appreciate my views. If it is ESA, suddenly the only fellow who may or may not join us will be China. But
Yes.
maybe there could be ways and means of making China to join us. I don't know. But the point is, so there will be three: ESA, NASA, and ESA. None of them individually can achieve the so-called extraordinary missions to Chandrayaan, Mangalyaan, Venus, and other things. Now, all the three should join together. Then only you can have any meaningful flight. This is going to be the scenario. Mark my word.
For the
Now,
future.
even if China doesn't join you, you can certainly go ahead with the Gulf countries will be there. And even Japan is going to show more interest on you. Then you have Indonesia, Malaysia, small countries. It is in the lines of. So your future lies in two areas. One is identify and contract out to individual private parties to do and develop the innovative things which are required for space. And two is try to see, once upon a time, I was dreaming that I will not get money from the government for running ISRO. We will do commercial exploitation. And see, after all, this is something, nothing is a secret here. What is, yeah, everybody knows, it all depends how you work towards the whole goal. So eventually, you will meet the requirements in any meaningful manner if you follow these two guidelines.